Rami Khouri, a distinguished public policy fellow at the American University of Beirut, and he joins us from Boston in the United States. Good to have you on TRT World. So just going through that proposal, what do you make of it, the one that Hamas has agreed to?
It's a pretty comprehensive and serious and ambitious one, but it seems that both sides want to do it for various reasons. They're both under intense pressures from different internal and external sources. The most intriguing thing for me is the guarantees from the US, the UN, and Qatar and Egypt, especially the US. I mean, if the US guarantees that at the end of this process, all the hostages are released and all the prisoners or most of the prisoners are released, and Israel withdraws fully from Gaza, does not control it, and stops attacking it, and they stop attacking each other, that would be quite a major achievement and re-establishes the United States as the dominant player in this process after many, many years of rather incompetent U.S. Action in terms of diplomacy and peacemaking. So this is a significant change in the role of the U.S., but a positive one. I think it's something that we need to applaud. It's rare that we applaud what the U.S. does in the Middle East, but this is something that's really very good. And if it works, then it sets the stage possibly for the ultimate negotiation between Palestinians and Israelis, which is for a permanent peace agreement and an end to the Arab-Israeli conflict. And that's rather ambitious, and that would come down the road. But this is something that we have to take step by step.
Yes, step by step indeed. And it is a big if at this stage. If it works, and of course, if Israel agrees to it, they're sending a delegation to Cairo on Tuesday. What happens, though, if they say no? Are we back to square one?
The Israelis will keep attacking, and Hamas will probably retaliate in some way. The attacks yesterday by Hamas and I think Islamic Jihad fired some rockets. Shows that they're still able to attack if they want. We don't know how badly degraded their military capabilities are, but if they don't agree on the ceasefire and it falls apart, there's probably going to be tremendous damage done in the destruction of Rafah and another wave of hundreds of thousands of refugees. They're already refugees, but to be on the move again, and where they go, nobody knows. It's quite extraordinary how the refugees and the displaced people are being treated as sort of objects like pieces on a chessboard. You move them around, and but in this case, it's not easy to deal with like 1 million people who don't have any place to stay and go move around with their tents or their cars or their donkey horse-drawn carts. It's quite something.
It really is something, because some people have been displaced not once, not twice, but up to 10 times. And it's not just individuals, it's their families, it's their children who are trying to get to places of safety. We know the United States has said to Israel, don't go into Rafah, evacuate people if you need to. But do you think the U.S.'s opposition to an all-out assault on Rafah is separate from the push for a ceasefire, or do you think they could be linked here?
Oh, they're definitely linked. The United States and Israel are really partners in the genocidal assault on the Palestinians in Gaza. The United States arms Israel, gives it protection at the UN, gives it money. Israel could not do what it's done in the last 7 months without the US being 100% on board with it. So you have to see this as Israel and the United States on one side and the Palestinians and Hamas in Gaza on the other side. So this is definitely, there's a link between the Rafah operation and the ceasefire talks. The sincerity of the United States is still very much in doubt among most people in the Middle East. They say a lot of nice things. I mean, this idea that Biden is telling the Israelis, you've got to pay more attention to the civilians. After they've killed, I don't know what the figure is, 36,000 and another 75,000 injured, and it's an extraordinary amount of human suffering where the United States didn't particularly care, in fact, was involved in letting it happen. So the sincerity of the United States is a great issue in doubt. But
Yeah.
that's a separate point. But if they can get the ceasefire and the permanent removal of the Israelis and no more fighting, that's a positive step.
It certainly would be a positive step. And Rami, I'm wondering, do you think Hamas is facing the same kind of pressure, knowing now that this Rafah offensive is going ahead, knowing that so many civilian lives will be lost and even more people displaced?
I think certainly Hamas is under great pressure. I think one of the reasons they've accepted this agreement is that it relieves the pressure on them a little bit, but it also responds to everything they want. I mean, this is quite significant that Israel is doing, if the terms of the agreement as reported are accurate and they're carried out, it's a big victory of some sort for Hamas to get the Israelis totally out of Gaza, let the Palestinians move around anywhere they want in Gaza, and full humanitarian aid is resumed, and no more Israeli attacks on Gaza. That would be quite a significant achievement. But Hamas is really in a very difficult situation. We don't know how intact or degraded are its military capabilities. There's a lot of speculation, but and even the Israelis, I think, don't, and the Americans don't have full good intelligence on this. So if Hamas has really good capabilities and can really do damage on Israel, it will keep fighting. The fact that so many people have died and there's been so much human suffering is a terrible tragedy. But at the same level, a lot of people who look at these situations around the world of liberation from colonial occupation and subjugation, everybody, basically historians will tell you, there's never been a liberation from an occupation and a foreign subjugation without massive suffering and death. It's just, it comes with the process, unfortunately. But if we can reduce the suffering from now and the death and move to a permanent peace agreement after the ceasefire agreement, that would be a good move. And I think the Hamas would get a lot of criticism from people in the region, but also a lot of praise if they were able to do that.
Rami Khouri, good to get your analysis. Speaking to us there from Boston in the United States.